Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal. Protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
With the Conan Newtron.
That is Alan is a Cowboy Killer. Classic track by McCluskey. Before that, we had Carthage, Must Be Destroyed, off an odd and awesome little record known as Christian Fitness. And we have on the line, all the way from across the pond, Mr. Andrew Falkous. Falco, hello.
Hey, how's it going? That's quite an oddly stilted, lolloping introduction you gave me there.
I try to do things stilted whenever possible. It makes things all the more awkward.
It was like a John Malkovich cadence. I enjoyed it.
Wow, you just got likened to John Malkovich.
I'll take it.
That's pretty awesome.
Anytime I get compared to any talented person of any kind, I generally will take it and just accept the compliment, even if it isn't intended as such. Also on the show today, Falco, we have Brenabets, a.k.a. DJ Real Time Drop, and Mr. Dano Distortion, who are going to be the other voices that you may or may not be hearing if I decide to keep their microphones on.
No, not their real names, though, I'm guessing.
No, sort of. Yeah, exactly.
Is that what the kids call handles, yeah?
Exactly, and it's a screen name. It's an Instagram @hashtag.
Okay, yeah, cool, good. I will adjust my conversation forthwith.
Yeah, please speak only in emojis if you can.
Okay, all right.
Falco, thanks so much for coming back to the show, man. This is a real treat.
Absolute pleasure.
I guess the biggest news is that there's a great little solo record that is not a solo record that you just released on a Friday afternoon, no less, known as Christian Fitness. Now,
I released it on a Friday, early evening, because I'm such a brilliantly ruthless businessman that I wanted to exploit my market as effectively and efficiently as possible. No, of course not. Basically, the mastering took a long time to get ready, and Sean, who was mastering it, he would keep sending me files on a Friday. Something would need to be altered. He's a very busy man, and he'd get back to me the following Friday, send me the files just before he left work. I'd have changes to make again, and then it wouldn't be ready until the following Friday. So rather than waiting, I just decided to put it out then. And so even though that was a bit crazy, because we were trying to have some people over for food at the time.
Wow, that's multitasking.
Yeah, but it was kind of fun. It gave an interesting counterpoint, because pretty much all of our conversations at the minute are about our new kittens. So it was nice to have something else to talk about for a change.
Perhaps something not related to felines.
Yeah, as much as kittens are the business. You can over kitten at times, can't you? You can. It's possible to talk about cats too much.
Hey, I've seen the internet. I get it.
Yeah, well, that's what it's for, apparently, isn't it?
That's my understanding. And we did preview a track off of this record the last time that you joined us. I'm using the royal we again, by the way, and I feel it's necessary to do that again.
I like it. You forget I live in Britain, and we love the royal we, because it reminds us of the immense pride we have in our royal family.
Absolutely, it's a sop to the monarchy, and I say it with pride and pleasure. At the time, you were debating about calling this Tremendous Fence. Did you?
I was.
You backed down from that, huh?
I did back down, and it was. Well, Tremendous Fence, I've always dreamed, but I mean, literally having dreams about being in a band called Tremendous Fence. And it was a name which is funny to me, but I realized that people would actually think it was a joke with the name Tremendous Fence, as opposed to music which has a little bit of a sense of humor. You don't want it to be an actual joke. So that's why I decided not to call it that. Which, I don't know. Maybe I regret that, maybe I don't. Ask me in 6 years.
Well, Christian Fitness is no slouch either. I mean, that definitely is an evocative theme. I definitely have pictures of white, linen-suited zealots doing jumping jacks in a compound or something along those lines.
Or some Osama bin Laden boxer size. Yeah, some. Well, I believe there is, obviously in the deep south. I mean, I don't even need to point that out, do I? So a kind of, there is at least one gym where, all there's like an exercise circuit which is based around the Stations of the Cross. So I don't know if that's in tribute to Jesus or a kind of a mocking kind of.
Sure, it could go either way.
As a non-Christian, I don't know how that would be viewed really, and I think really it's best not to think about it. I mean, if pressed, and I'm rarely pressed, I would like to cop out totally and say it's Christian fitness with a small c. So there we are.
Now that's a thing that I was sort of debating bringing up or not, because Lord knows that. And you see what I did there when I said Lord knows? That Lord knows grammar and spelling humor and whatnot really plays well over the radio, but you have a sort of all lowercase affectation.
Will do, yeah. And it is definitely an affectation. And it's as simple as I've always just really, I think things in lowercase look good. I mean, I can't really explain it any more than that. More military, more... I don't know. I've just always been odd capitals. There's something about a capital in the middle of a paragraph, particularly, which has always pissed me off. So yeah, it's oft commented on as well.
Is it really often? Are we talking YouTube comments here, or like what's the who's commenting?
I've had it loads of times. Hey, you're that lowercase guy.
Is intercapping 666 really pissed off about this, or what?
Possibly, yeah. Well, some people are so generous with their fonts, but I don't know. But yeah, definitely you're that lowercase guy, So that's fine. I mean, if you're going to have a reputation, it may as well be bizarre.
Absolutely, and one of the things that that I've always found interesting is when bands do have an affectation. I think the only band that pulled off any kind of odd thing with the capitalization and pulled it off, to me, in my taste, is the Paper Chase, who have that weird intercapping thing going on. And even then...
I think a font's fine. I think if you're the kind of band who, generally speaking, have your own font on a poster, say a festival poster, that's when things have gone wrong. If you need a font to get... I mean,
Right, you need to download an EPS file for someone to make a flyer for you.
to evoke the sheer amount of rock contained within. I mean, obviously there are exceptions. I suppose Metallica, like they've written a decent song in the last quarter century.
all too true, unfortunately. Yes,
it's a long time since Metallica wrote a good song, isn't it? I mean, it's a long time.
But they did star in one of the best comedies of the last 20 years, which is Some Kind of Monster.
I don't know. You see, I don't think that's a. I found it funny at first, but I don't know. About a year later, upon rewatching it when very drunk, I thought it was Kirk Hammett's Suicide Note at first. And then,
totally.
But then, I don't know. If you ever read or seen Waiting for Godot, the Samuel Beckett?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it's a little like that. There's pathos becomes bathos, goes back to pathos, except. There's even more of it in Some Kind of Monster because there's the extras, and the extras are just incredible. The bits they cut. I mean,
the professional hangers-on, the psychiatrist, as for instance.
The scene with Dave Mustaine and Lars is just epic.
Who's the rapper they do the thing with? Is it I can't remember who it is now.
Oh God, I think I blocked that from my memory. I don't even remember that anymore.
My God, when they're doing
Kid Rock,
it really was like Christian missionaries. It was awful. It was awful on every level. It's just there are levels yet to be invented that it was awful on, but kind of deeply tragic at the same time.
Well, sure, and for me, that's kind of where the comedy came into place about it. And let's be clear, I'm a big fan of your work, and I know that a lot of listeners are as well, and I want to speak specifically to your work as well. But I like to point out that I think it's... Okay, sorry. I think it's fantastic in every possible way, shape, and form. That one of the most iconic scenes in that movie, for me, is when Lars and James Hetfield are having this conversation about whatever. I just feel like you're not listening to me, and then Kirk Hammett just very quietly says, "That's funny. That's how I felt for the last 15 years," and it's completely ignored in every way, shape, and form.
Like Kurt, yeah. Kurt's basically the punctuation, isn't he?
Absolutely.
You say something, Curly, I'm getting my breath back. But there's something, lest we. I mean, I do a lot of in our. I try not to script the kind of things you say in between songs, but when we get the keyboard on, because there is a part of me growing up liking rock music who is faintly embarrassed by the idea of playing a keyboard. So one way I cope is by taking the piss out of Metallica fans. I always play a note on the keyboard and I say, if there are any Metallica fans in the crowd, and sometimes I change it to Anthrax or Megadeth, just, variety being the spice of life and all that. I say, if there are any Metallica fans in the crowd, this is a keyboard. And, and if anybody laughs or give you the finger, especially if somebody gives you the finger, I mean, that's designed to get the finger. You say, now, do you have an adult with you just in case you need to get a bus back home?
Fantastic.
But they usually, I mean, I'd say I was like you once, but I wasn't like them once. If I was a fan of a band who hadn't released a good song for quarter of a century, then that long. There are.
Well, you can even give a history lesson with it as well. I mean, I suppose.
Born, got Metallica tattoos, and died of liver failure in the time that Metallica wrote a good song. It's quite a shocking indictment of something.
So, big fan then of Metallica. That's what you're saying.
I just still know people who are huge fans.
I can't even. I mean,
the kind of people who wouldn't buy a new band, even a band they quite liked record for £8, but will happily cross oceans to see that thundering one pace load of shit play for 2 hours. It's just...
Wow.
Anyway,
don't mince words. Tell us how you really feel.
But anyway, like I say, I was like them once. I remember seeing Metallica at Whitney Bay Ice Rink, and even as a 15-year-old boy, wondering why the drummer couldn't do any drumming.
It really is a wonder. You're correct about that, and I think that I still think you're short selling it as a comedy, because for me, Some Kind of Monster kind of plays off as a real life Spinal Tap, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I like it.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I guess if you have your empathy hat on, it may seem a little more on the sad side.
No, I just, obviously I'm exaggerating for comic effect, but comparing comparing it to Spinal Tap, I mean, it's like when people write fiction. Fiction needs to be more realistic than fact in order to be convincing, and Spinal Tap is more realistic than Some Kind of Monster in a lot of ways, because at least there's a bond between the characters. I love the bit where James Hetfield slams the door. That's my favourite bit.
It's pretty fantastic. It's such an 8-year-old boy move.
I love it when he slams the door, because a part of me is thinking that he's forgotten his phone and he's going to have to come back in for his phone. that doesn't happen. I mean, being in a band, spending a lot of time with people who you don't get to have sex with can be very stressful. To a degree, I empathise, but I don't know. I think mad amounts of money make already mad people even madder. That must be the. I don't know. We just started talking about this. I didn't have any material prepared.
Yeah, it's a disproportionate amount of material spent on Metallica, to be sure.
Why, Conan? Why?
Oh, people ask me that all the time. You have no idea. Back to the Christian fitness record. There's no way I can segue out of that, so I'm just going to make a wild jump. That what possessed you specifically to make a solo record that is not a solo record at all, let alone to call it Christian fitness, and to have a plesiosaur with a watch around it as the cover art?
Well, that was designed by Michael, who works at is part of a company called Aesthetic Apparatus, who do lots of screen prints. He did we met him because I think he did the art for a McCluskey show in Minneapolis years ago, and he did the Travels with Myself and another cover, the Future of the Left cover as well. He's a lovely young man.
That makes sense. That looks very similar to that record
so
cover.
So said, how about this? And I went, yeah, that's perfect.
And for those streaming on the website, you can now see a link for the record cover on the RadioValencia.fm website, and gaze upon it in its glory.
Gotta love a plesiosaur. And in terms of the record, Future of the Left is a lot of fun to do, but it involves collecting together a lot of people and resources, and pushing it all in one direction. Whereas One Direction, in terms of being I don't need to explain that to you.
You do not need to explain that. No,
I do not need to explain that to you. And whereas this was a question of getting Logic for my Mac and just recording some songs, and it being as simple as that, really. So usually I wouldn't have had that much time to put to it, but I was just doing a temp job which ended at the end of February. So I've had all day to bottle feed kittens and write. I've started about 17 different novels, which of course is not a cliche at all for a guy in a band to do, but I'm very much enjoying writing for half the day and making music for the other day, and I'm gonna start panicking about money in about 2 weeks.
Well, sure, I mean, it seems like it's a good way to keep yourself sane between kitten bottle feeding, of course, which is also a sanity exercise.
Bottle feeding kittens, even though it may have been unnecessary because I may have underestimated how old the kittens were when we got them. It made me feel like a worthy human being for perhaps only the fourth or fifth time in my life. So I'll take that little snapshot memory and keep recalling it whenever I'm doing something really bad.
These kittens might end up as grown-up adult cats with weird sexual peccadillos now.
No, they're just going to end up as regular cats, being cats. I mean, I did find Genghis in the bin twice yesterday, though.
Genghis, Genghis is a lovely name for a cat.
Genghis and Bonsai, they're called. Genghis is he's a male cat, so he doesn't take any, doesn't respect any boundaries whatsoever. So I'm trying to teach him French. It's not going so well because I don't know French. Really should have taught him a language that I understand.
Of course, and I'm very excited that on this Christian Fitness record that you have a song called Carthage Must Be Destroyed, because the history of the world as written by the winners' history of the world being the Romans is so interesting, and I think it's a fascinating topic that maybe not quite as fast as Metallica, so bear with me, but I think it's a fascinating topic that the whole idea of how Carthage was recorded by history and versus what actually happened are two wildly disparate and different things. So what led you... Oh, I think I rambled on too hard. We lost him. Let's get him back again. Too much Carthage. Too much Carthage talk. I don't know why... Yeah, Protonic Reversal for too much Carthage talk. Why don't we... Okay, tell you what. Why don't we take a small break for a minute here, and we'll listen to another Christian Fitness song. This is the title track, and we'll be back talking to Mr. Andrew Falkous. That's Christian Fitness by Christian Fitness off of the record I'm Scared of Everything That Isn't Me. We're back with Mr. Andrew Falkous.
Yeah, in theory. Let's see how that goes.
Again, as was pointed out during the break, apparently the topics need to remain kitten-based, or at least Metallica-based, and not slip into ancient history of any kind of erudite topic.
Not slip into discussions of long destroyed ancient Phoenician civilizations. That's not what the internet wants to hear about.
Well, if you can keep it kitten-related and mention how you came up with the idea for the song about Carthage, that would be very advantageous for everybody.
Well, I was reading the book Carthage Must Be Destroyed, whilst at the same time thinking that Cardiff must be destroyed. And part of the song is to Carthage must be destroyed. I think that was originally spoken, but I can't remember which Roman senator it was. It wasn't. But that was obviously discussing the destruction of Carthage by the Romans in the Second and Third Punic Wars. But I don't know. I had a really bad time with Cardiff, a place where I've lived for about 20 years. Earlier this year, and I thought it would be nice to slag it off through the medium of song. Really,
fantastic.
I think sometimes there are times to celebrate the places you live and the people you know, and it's important to let those people and those places know how important and how enriching they are to you. And sometimes it's important to turn around and tell them exactly how limiting they can be. Otherwise, how are they ever going to grow? So I think so far there's only a couple of people have noticed that what they actually sing before the chorus is Cardiff must be destroyed. But then again, it's not necessarily crucial to enjoyment of or understanding of the song. But ancient history or history in general is something which very much has always interested me, whether it's reading about it or listening to audiobooks or going to lectures. I just love it. I'm my knowledge is largely incomplete, but I've just always been fascinated by it.
Well, and I think that you definitely toe a fine line. Most of the time bands that kind of take that approach adopt a very cerebral, sort of almost King Crimson-esque approach to things, and to have more immediate music that kind of punches in the gut like that. People sometimes get confused if you have more, either humorous or beyond the baby, let me touch you in your bathing suit area sort of level of lyricism.
Or sometimes very... Or sometimes... Wow, that's proper third date stuff there, Conan.
Deep stuff.
It's difficult because sometimes you don't want to make the music feel, and I'm quoting Stuart Lee here, like an aggressive lecture, but it's
I think I saw aggressive lecture at the Gilman in '97. Go ahead.
Aggressive lecture, with their second album to a Revenge Fist, wasn't it? It's always interesting me. The thing is, you want to. In one sense, you don't want to try and lecture your audience, but also, and I use the term audience generously, but you also don't want to patronize them either. I've known some very intelligent, some very funny people who, the second they transfer their medium of communication to rock music, lose a lot of the things which makes them unique as people. They slip into the idiom of rock music, which is singing about very specific things in a very specific way. Which I think is a real shame, and especially since certainly history is much more accessible these days. I mean, there's a lot of what you might term as narrative history, I suppose, like authors like Tom Holland, who's written very extensively about Rome and the battles between East and West and the rise of Islam. It's very accessible, and it isn't as dry and academic as it once was. So it's also nice. I've introduced some friends to history and that through that pathway, and that's quite rewarding. Julia sometimes asks me when I'm 60 if I'm going to become a history professor. Like, that's a profession you can suddenly take up when you're 60,
Sure.
Right there, and it came time to become a history lecturer, But no, I'm happy just reading about it and making pretentious allusions to it in my songs.
We're talking to Andrew Falkous, a.k.a. Falco of Aggressive Lecture, and we're going to be also listening to some more music, but I'm kidding, of course, that he is from the excellent Future of the Left. Christian Fitness is the new record.
Culture the Elf.
Sure. Fantastic. And McCluskey as well. And we played some McCluskey earlier, as we do on the show. And it seems like you've reached a place where you're very comfortable with the older material having a sort of elevated place of importance, maybe largely due to where people were in their lives when they first heard it, or even revisionist history towards, I was always really, really into this.
Yeah, I think both of those and none of those are true. I mean, a certain group of people will speak relatively highly of that band, but more people had never heard of that band. And I was in it at the time, and I remember our last US tour. All right, relations in the band weren't exactly all sparkly anyway, but I remember not only being depressed by that, but being depressed by the tiny attendances at every show. It is, to say it's slightly revisionist would be an absolute statement of fact. But playing in the band was fun for a bit, and then like a lot of things, it was a huge pain in the ass.
Absolutely.
What are you going to do? It's still the thing with doing records is you get something which sits there forever, hopefully. Even if it's whether it's for 2, 3, 4, or 175 people.
Absolutely, and I think you guys have, as McCluskey and Future to the Left, every live iteration that I've seen you in, there's always been a going for the jugular sort of element that I always appreciate.
And also just trying to have as much fun as possible. Really, you do a significant amount of rehearsing so that when you play live, you can have fun. There's only about 3 or 4 songs in our set where I have to, what you might generously term as concentrate, because of the interaction between the guitar and the words. But the rest of the time, I'm just having fun. And I've only had, I think, 1 holiday as an adult, but I've been on tour a lot, and that's because A, I can't afford to go on holiday, but B, because I couldn't imagine going to another country for 2 weeks without playing a bunch of shows, and playing those shows every night is the best fun a person could have.
Well, sure, and it seems that for people that live the life and have done that it's something that seems very natural. Whereas you try to explain that to your average human being, and you just
they wouldn't. I don't suppose you'd understand it all. If I was staying in a normal hotel or something, and at 4:30 I didn't have a sound check to do, or somebody to argue with about the rider, then I wouldn't know what was happening.
Right.
My life wouldn't have purpose. And people say, well, why don't you take a holiday? Why don't you just take an acoustic guitar away with you? You're like, don't think you've heard my music.
Is that when you just say, just stop speaking? Stop. Just don't speak to me anymore.
Oh yeah, I'll take an acoustic guitar with me in case I need some firewood, or in case I need to protect myself from a wolf.
In case you need to protect yourself from a wolf, indeed. Yes.
Wolf. Is that Danzig?
Yeah, exactly. Danzig will approach your camping area, and you can just ward him off.
I need an acoustic. Yeah, I'll take an acoustic guitar. Is a windbreak?
We're talking about warding off Danzig with acoustic guitars with Andrew Falkous from Future to the Left.
I think with Danzig, you just would use multi-clause sentences, and that would just have. If he punched you in the face, he'd probably do it on camera, wouldn't he?
Actually, he got punched in the face.
Yeah. He would still be very, I'm sure, has irritated about that interaction. That's because it was immortalized in the early days of YouTube forever and ever.
Yeah, there was an anniversary for it, actually.
I remember seeing an article. It might have been an article. I don't, being punched speaking as somebody who's been punched in the face a lot, I don't, even seeing Glenn Danzig getting punched in the face, I didn't take any great pleasure from,
Sure.
I must admit, Piers Morgan, I think I'd like to see him get punched in the
He is a smug one, isn't he, that Piers Morgan?
Well, yeah, he's a...
Chelsea Handler almost punched him in the face.
You know, Dano, I'm going to go and give you a professional radio tip that it sounds better if you speak into the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
He's training. It's okay.
That was a pro-am radio tip, Conan.
Pro-am.
Piers Morgan had a lot of history even before he hit your shores. He quite famously published because he used to be the editor of a newspaper called the Daily Mirror over here.
I remember this.
He published a picture of Princess Diana, obviously pre-death and sainthood, where of her in the gym, like up the skirt shot, and then
classy.
And then after the in inverted commas invasion of Iraq, he published some faked photos of British troops abusing Iraqi soldiers, which so he didn't have the best reputation over here anyway, really, and to take that level of very kind of cliched Bond villain British smugness over to the States didn't really endear him to British people either. Although, you know, the one thing you can get behind him with is his attitude to gun control, but really you'd rather he was on the other side. He's such a despicable human being, you know, that it was kind of disappointing that he had some common sense in that regard. But
sure,
but there we are. You can't pick your allies.
But you can pick your nose. That's
true. It's an old thing from Monty Python right there.
There we are.
We have a question from the listening audience. Joe McClune of the excellent band Roland from Oakland says he saw you in San Diego at the Casbah in the early 2000s with McClusky. The crowd was small but really incredibly enthusiastic. Where in the U.S. did you get the best response from people? And I'm going to presume that it's McClusky that he's speaking of.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I liked it because it had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Oh, you burned me, friend. You burned me so hard.
The best reaction was for McClusky and Future Left is nearly always Seattle. Nearly always. You had some good ones in Chicago, although that varies a little bit. New York is usually good, but Seattle, and against most people's experience, in terms of actual enthusiasm of audience, although this might have to do with the time you play, so people are more inebriated. Los Angeles as well, a couple of shows in a place there called Spaceland.
I remember it well, yes. It's called something total Satellite now, I think is what it's
Satellite,
called.
Satellite, right. And just a incredibly full, drunk crowd, but Seattle wins every time. You know, it's number one, and number one. So, yeah.
So Joe, with his questions that have beginnings, middle, and end, actually reminded me that there was something I meant to bring up the first time you were on the air that we didn't mention it, that near the end of McClusky, there was a gear theft that happened on one of your tours, right?
Yeah, that happened, I think it was Phoenix,
Phoenix.
Yeah, we lost about, $25,000 worth of stuff.
Oof,
wow.
Including we were lent by Gibson 3 guitars, and they gave us them at the start of the tour, or rather they gave it to the guy who was driving us in New York before we'd flown in. And when we got there, we realized these guitars, I don't even know what they were, but we couldn't have used them. They were useless to us. And so we were going around the country, and a Gibson representative was going to come and take these guitars off our hands, and they wouldn't show up. And then we'd get to the next show, and they wouldn't show up. And this went on for like 19 days of trying to return these useless guitars to Gibson. And then they got stolen, and we had to pay $3,000 for them.
Oh, man. Oh. Terrible.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails. So you just got to. It was devastating. But there's some stuff written about the band, not by many people, but to suggest that was some kind of catalyst for the band breaking up. The band broke up because people were dicks. It didn't have anything to do with an equipment theft. It just meant we broke up with a bigger debt. But
Sure.
it was devastating because we always, even though we were in a position where we were on 2PO, which is part of Beggar's Banquet, we always tried to make, because we really were in it, and I'm still in it now for the long haul. If we were given to us by a label, we didn't take that for granted. If we made any money from merchandise, even though we didn't have any kind of one of those 360 deals that a lot of bands sign now, we'd always plough all of our profit back into the tour just to make us a viable concern, so to have something like that happen was
Yeah, that's devastating. I mean,
it was devastating. I mean, I'm not a man who's commonly brought to tears, but that was a day where it just really didn't feel worth it, and that was the day that Bush won a second term as well.
Oh man, that's just
So whammy.
Jeez.
yeah. That's harsh. That's
You say harsh.
it's a harsh toke, as we say out here. Oof.
Yeah. That one was all roach. That one. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I try not to think about that day. It was Yeah.
Well, why don't we get on to cheerier topics? For one thing, and I'm gonna forget to do this if I don't do it now. I meant to say hello to you from Jeff Moody of Stripwax fame, who.
Hello, Jeff Moody, who I remember speaking to on email or something a while back.
Fantastic guy, American treasure. I had him on a few episodes ago, a long extended interview, and it was a real treat. He's to be that undefeated at that age and to have accomplished so many great things and to really bring it in so pure of a way is an inspiration, and I like that guy a lot. So
anybody who keeps on doing what they do, to hell with everybody else. That's the thing. I've known a lot of very talented people who treat, very talented, very sincere people who treat rock and roll like an occasional convenience. And you know what, that's fine. But if you were in a band for 2 or 3 years and then you just stop doing it because life starts happening, you're a pussy. Pick your game up. No, dude,
you've heard it here, people. You've heard it here.
It's a band. You can write a song in 3 minutes. All right, writing a novel or researching a book on the Third Reich takes time, but it's rock and roll. Pick up your guitar, meet your friends Alan, Bert, and Belinda. Go down the YMCA or wherever the hell it is to play. Plug in your Squire, I don't know, elephantitis tits, and play your songs. Awesome.
Fantastic. Some harsh invectives and brutal truths from Mr. Andrew Falkous of Future the Left, McCluskey, Christian Fitness now as well. Now, are there any plans to take but I wish I could just isolate that whole thing and play it as a bit, but it's far too long. So I'm just going to it'll have to live in the podcast in the memory.
Okay.
Is there any plans to do any of this Christian Fitness stuff live, or is it more just doing the music for the sake of doing the music?
I'd love to. I mean, part of the reason for doing this is there's some frustration with Future the Left because 2 members of the band have very well-paying jobs that it's very difficult to get time off from. Jack, our drummer, certainly doesn't have a well-paid job, but he does have a beautiful little baby girl who he doesn't like to be away from too much. And the person that's left after all that is me, who wants to play shows and go and do stuff. And it's difficult enough for a band like us to tour anyway without those restrictions in place. So I'd love, with Christian Fitness, I aim to have another record out in the next couple of months because it's writing a record. It's easy. I'd love to do some touring soon because as we were just looking into doing some shows with Trailer Dead in Europe, but again, even though we're offered good money, we still can't afford to do it.
Right, logistics, real life concerns.
Logistics, we can't afford to do it, but also financially, we can't. We're not in a position where we can go and do a show unless we're breaking even. I mean, we'd never make money from a show unless it was a show at New Year or whatever. We'd never think about making an actual profit. God forbid. But we would hope to make some money by selling T-shirts or whatever. That's the way we have to budget the band, to make it work. But it's as far as I'm concerned, though. I mean, we toured. Well, when I think you saw us in San Francisco with Andrew Jackson Jihad, that was nearly 2 years ago now.
Yep.
And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not in a proper band if I'm not touring the States. I'm not in at this moment in time. I'm not in a proper band. I mean, that's all of my life is focused on making records and touring. And my favorite thing to do in the whole world, above absolutely everything else, is to drive around the States and play rock shows.
Sure.
And the fact that I don't get it makes me sad most days, But that's just a lot. But hey, just wanting something, just desiring something, doesn't mean that you get it. There are plenty of people out there, plenty of deserving people who'd love to have an opportunity to tour the States, or people in the States who'd love to tour Europe, and they never get that. But I've had a couple of tastes of that, and yeah, I'd like to be back every year for a couple of months. But in the absence of having £100,000 in the bank, I just won't be doing it anytime in the near future. Christian Fitness, though, I hope it works out, but obviously it's not a normal band, so I'd have to probably pay musicians,
Well, I work cheap, so what time is practice?
Practice, my friend, is practice. You need
It's a hell of a commute, but I'll do it.
Now that is a commute, especially with Welsh trains. No, in Wales, if somebody says they're going to be 5 minutes, that means they're going to be a multiple of 5 minutes. So I'm going to be 5 minutes. That could be 2.5 hours.
There's like an exponent attached. It's like actually 5 minutes cubed. Or
it's the beginning of a string, basically. The number 5. But the rest of the string isn't always fully explained. That's how this country, and I use that term loosely, works.
Fantastic. Well, not fantastic at all. Depressing, but
yeah, that one.
And again, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Mr. Andrew Falkous, Falco, of the band Future the Left, McCluskey, and we're speaking of many things. You are interested in the Christian Fitness record that we have been playing songs from and will continue to play songs from. You can find that at christianfitness.bandcamp.com. The record is called I Am Scared of Everything That Isn't Me, which is fantastic, by the way. Living in America, believe me, I appreciate that the
there
mockery of that
people
mindset.
That live that way.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is a sad truth. You can buy it straight from the source at Bandcamp, and it's recommended that you do, as everyone who listens to the show will obviously just do my will as my minions. I order you to go forth and purchase this excellent record.
Wow, that's strong invective there, Conan.
I'm known for many things, and strong invectives are one of them. I think I also...
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. You have questions?
We have answers.
Quite a PSA.
So, thank you so much for joining us again. It's always great to have you, Falco.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Do you have any closing words of wisdom, messages of peace, love, and understanding?
No, but my Julia, who's the bass player in Future the Left, and my wife, she bought a car today, and we've never had a car before. So we just drove to our local superstore and bought a sun lounger and loads of cat litter. So life's pretty good.
Did you see Danzig when you bought the cat litter?
I didn't see Danzig. I hear he's a catist, but no, I didn't see Danzig or anybody from Biohazard or the replacement guitarist from Corrosion of Conformity, or Bell and Sebastian's guitar tech, or I don't know, bloody hell, or Jim Jarmusch's shadow analyst. I didn't see any of it.
That's a darn shame, let me tell you.
Yeah, that'd be a good job being a shadow analyst for Jim Jarmusch, wouldn't it?
That'd be wonderful. That's imagine explaining that at a party. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. So, what did you do? Well, actually, I'm
a shadow analyst. What?
I analyze shadows for the film director Jim Jarmusch.
What do those words mean?
Let me show you on a piece of graph paper.
I'm just gonna start telling people I do.
You should. That's a much more aggressively awesome and baffling job title than barista. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with that.
Well, I'm gonna create that job for myself. I'm gonna
your own shadow. Can you do that? You can be your own shadow analyst.
I will endorse you on LinkedIn if you do so.
Yeah. Go. Hey Jim, I reckon you need this. Give me a job. I'll do it for. How much would you do that for? Wow. Depends how many shadows.
Yeah. What's the workload look like? I mean,
Per actor?
Yeah. I mean, is it per actors or per movie? I mean, what's the
Per shadow.
Yeah.
per shadow? Yeah, it's a per shadow basis. If it's contractual,
Might get kind of crazy with the extras.
I think the more we talk about this, it's become clear to me that you need a team of shadow analyzers. Yeah, it's not just a job. It's not just a job for one freeloading fantasist liar. It's for a team of the same such.
So might I suggest that your job title should be Lead Shadow Analyst 2, the Roman numeral 2.
Yeah, lead shadow analyst to the director. Brackets assistant consultant for human and/or animal shadows with secondary authority over buildings and mountains. End brackets.
Esquire.
Yeah.
Incorporated.
Falco, it's been great talking to you, man.
No problem. And listen, you have a lovely day. I'm gonna go and catch just a little bit of. We've actually got sun here, so I'm gonna try and run about in the sun and try and alter my essential pastiness a little bit.
That is a delightful image.
That is a delightful image, actually.
But imagery be damned, it's just delightful.
Thank you so much, man. Talk to you next time.
Enjoy the rest of your show. Bye-bye.
Thank you.